Welcome to the Backstage Creative, the podcast that focuses on the people who work behind the scenes of theater. My name is Krista Copper, and I'm so honored that you're here. I'm so glad that you're listening to podcasts. Whatever you're doing while you're listening to this, I know that I do a lot of different things while listening to podcasts. I'm glad that this show can be in the background or the forefront of whatever it is that you're doing while you're listening. I am a musician who has been in theater for years now, and I have loved getting to know the people who work behind the scenes to create live productions. Some of the friends that I've had who have been the most influential in my life have been stage managers and sound engineers and music directors and designers. It's been my joy and honor and my privilege to sit down and talk with just some of these people who dedicate their time and their passion and their energy and their experience to create an experience for audience members. Today is my conversation with Jo Farley. Jo is a Portland, Oregon-based scenic artist. It was fun to talk with her. This was my first interview with someone who lives out west on the West Coast, and so it was fun to talk with her and hear about the theater scene out there and the culture, the Oregon culture, and how that influences her work. If you like this podcast, if you like this episode in particular, or if you just like the show in general, I would love to hear from you. You can leave a rating or review, iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. I really appreciate it. Or you can reach out to me. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. Send me a message. I would love to hear your thoughts on the show and what you like, don't like, what you want to hear more of, all of that stuff. Here we go. Here's my conversation with Jo Farley. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
Totally. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
Yeah. So you're, I think, the first person that I've ever interviewed on the West Coast.
Wow.
What is the West Coast scene like?
Well, I'm only in Portland, so I can really only speak for like kind of Pacific Northwest. But really, people are very accepting here. People really come from all types of walks of life to end up in a city like Portland. Really, I would say, especially compared to the East Coast in my experience, just very chill. Um, I've worked in Virginia. That's my experience with the East Coast slash the South, sort of. And I don't know. I feel like definitely things are just a little bit more, I guess, kind of more structured, a little bit more in an order. But here it's maybe a little bit less, a little more carefree.
Mm-hmm. So I have to ask, is living in Portland, Oregon, anything like the show Portlandia?
Yes.
Yes. I'm so glad to hear that.
Yes. It's almost exactly like Portlandia.
Oh
I'm
my
not gonna
gosh.
lie to you.
I need to go there. I need to go there so bad.
Yeah, it's totally worth it. A trip to Voodoo Donuts is totally worth it. A trip to Powell's is worth it. Do all the tourist things.
I love it. So what are you doing out in Portland?
Right now, I am a scenic artist for the Broadway Rose Theater, and that's in Tigard, which is the city right next to Portland. I do live in Portland, though, so I can consider myself Portland-based. But yeah, so that's my theater job that I do consider my number one priority schedule-wise. So for them, I'm working about every other month because then, the show runs and there's nothing to paint. So my day job is actually at a cannabis dispensary here in Portland.
That sounds like a very fitting Portland job.
Yeah, it's excellent. It's really great, kind of pursuing two passions of mine.
So how did you get to Portland? Take us through your background, like where you grew up, like schooling that you received, and what led you to where you are now.
Totally. Really, I've been doing theater since before I was born. My parents met at Fresno State University as theater majors, and that's where I grew up in Fresno, California. I started taking stagecraft in high school, and found out that there was a whole special area for painting, which I had always loved to do. I took a bunch of art classes as a kid and kind of didn't really know how I might make a career out of it. So I was feeling a little bit lost until I started the stagecraft class and they started teaching us basics of scenic painting. So by the time I graduated high school, I knew for sure that I wanted to pursue a theater degree in scenic painting specifically, which led me to Southern Oregon University down in Ashland, which was an amazing place to live. I received my BFA there with an emphasis in scenic painting. Got a lot of experience seeing the Oregon Shakespeare Festival plays. I didn't unfortunately have the chance to work there, but it was still like really great being in that type of. The whole town was a theater environment, so I felt very enriched in that way. Then after I graduated, I received a job out in Virginia. Like I mentioned before, I was the assistant scenic artist for the Barter Theater out there. Then I got a little homesick actually and had to come back to the West Coast where all of my family and friends are. And so that's kind of how I wound up in Portland. I knew I loved Oregon. And I was fortunate enough, my college advisor knew of this theater he designs for this theater, and they were in need of a painter, so he helped me get in contact with the technical director, and here I am.
So, do you have quite a bit of liberty with the scene, or is it pretty specific? Does a designer give you something extremely specific?
It totally depends on the designer, actually. We have a designer who designs for us who is very hands-on because she's also a scenic artist. So she really knows what kind of techniques to do as far as samples. So she's really involved in like the prep and she'll come in and like sort of give a tutorial if she has specific ideas. And that's really great and like helps a lot along the process. For the Christmas show right now that we're painting, I've just kind of gotten like more of like concept drawings rather than a rendering, which totally works for something like this. It's a little Santa's Village set. So it's like pretty easy to communicate. I guess it kind of depends also on the complexity of the design too.
Mm-hmm.
So with the show that I'm painting right now, I do have kind of a lot of freedom to just take the concept from paper to the actual set that our carpenters have built for us and kind of figuring out techniques. So I'm having to paint shingles on a flat roof, kind of simple. So I could create my own little template out of, we used a found item, a little metal disc to kind of help me do the arches and stuff. So I am getting to exercise the real creative part of scenic art this time around.
I love that. Do you use painting in other, not other careers, but like, are you able to use painting in other areas of your life besides just in theater?
I do like to paint at home too. My whole apartment has just like a ton of paintings that I've done.
Mm-hmm.
um, I've been doing paint pouring, I don't know, or like acrylic pouring. Pretty much it's exactly what it sounds like. You'll mix water and like a little bit of this oil-based chemical that'll make the paint sort of sell out as you pour it onto your surface. So you just kind of pick your colors and you pour them down. I like to pour them into rings, kind of, if that makes sense. Like pour it into the center of each circle of paint that I pour down, and it
Mm-hmm.
kind of spreads out. And then you tilt the canvas a little bit, and it just creates these abstract, kind of underwater looking, just like really cool. And it's really relaxing to do. It's relaxing to watch. It's relaxing to do. So I really like to do that lately.
Yeah, I have seen videos now that you're describing that. Those look really, really cool.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you grow as an artist?
I watch and listen to the people around me. I think that's just so important. And it's very simple. It's a skill that I picked up in school. And I never assumed to know everything. Even the simplest things. Again, the show that I'm working on right now, I watched the people who dress the set because that's not something that I have a lot of experience doing. The people who put like the practical foliage on, or like, the presents around the Christmas tree and stuff, just to see like what their process is kind of like and what they go through. And then if I'm ever around people who have done scenic art, I like to ask for their opinion, take a step back and look at my work together and see, if we can troubleshoot any problems I might be having. I think the collaborative aspect of theater is what makes theater the craft that we love so much.
Mm-hmm.
So I fully, it's just so beneficial to watch and listen to everyone.
I mean, that's one of the main reasons I did this podcast. Like, as a musician, I can learn how to be a better musician from watching how the design team interacts with each other when they're trying to solve a problem, or watching the lighting designer do his thing during tech rehearsal. And so I love there's concepts that you can pull from other people who are doing something that's totally different from you. So I love to hear that.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you ever feel like stuck or burned out in a project that you're working on, and how do you get over that?
Definitely, if I'm doing a big project, like if I'm painting the floor of a main stage theater, definitely it helps to step away. If I feel like I've been doing it for too long, it's really important to listen to your body and take a step back. Like, yes, we always have deadlines to meet, but I always allow myself to, even if I just step outside and breathe in some fresh air, take a drink of water, that usually gets me through if I'm having a tough moment, because I can always remind myself I'm doing my art. This is what I love to do, and it shouldn't stress me out. So let's calm down and try and find out a way that we can make this easier, and that usually starts with just relaxing and reminding myself that the show will go on.
I had someone tell me once, like, what we're doing isn't surgery, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, yes, what we're doing, sure, absolutely, it's important, and like, of course, we want to do a good job, but no one's life is at stake. I mean, unless you're like a stage manager and you're calling something, but
Yeah, or like, like you want to build the platforms to be like stable, you want those
yes,
numbers to be right. But like, as far as like, the audience is not going to be handed a copy of the rendering
yeah,
every, like, with their program,
hmm
they're not going to be holding up the design and looking at my backdrop and picking out if I'm an inch off on one branch of the tree. They're not going to know. They're just going to say that's
hmm
a beautiful tree.
hmm yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That perspective is so important.
Yeah, yeah, and it is something that I do have to remind myself, because I feel it's a tendency of an artist to want to be perfect, you
hmm
know? I want it to look good. I don't want it to look bad.
uh-huh.
But, at the end of the day, it's just for everyone's enjoyment. It's entertainment.
hmm And as artists, like, it's fine if there's human elements to the art, right? It doesn't,
Yeah,
like, art, we're humans, and it's not gonna always be perfect. Like, as a musician, I'm not always gonna play the right note. I mean, I'm gonna try
right.
my hardest, but I mean, we're human, and that's part of going to a live production, is that human experience of sometimes mistakes happen, and sometimes things don't get done in time, and like the show still somehow manages to go on.
Right. Yeah. Like, you buy a ticket, you know that this is being created by human beings. You know that it's not just like an automatic button pushed and everything turns out perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is a degree in scenic painting? What does that all entail?
Well, I actually took a lot of classes in the art department as well as the theater department. Well, I guess I should have been more clear. It's a BFA in theater, specializing in scenic painting.
Okay.
So I learned all of the script analysis things. I took the whole set design track, so that I know how set design works. I took our scenic painting classes that we do have, and I was a TA for the scenic painting class in my senior year. And I was on all of our paint crews for all of our shows. And then as I got into my junior and senior year, I was the lead of those paint crews. Really, it was just a lot of practicing paint in addition to my, liberal arts degree studies and general theater studies as well.
There's so many degrees now that you can get in theater. So I think it's interesting to hear,
Yeah,
people who, especially people who went specifically to college for
yeah.
theater, all the things that went into some of those degrees.
Yeah, yeah. And like I said, yeah, I did all the script analysis, all the Shakespeare living in Ashland, Oregon. I didn't personally get it, but they offer a Shakespeare minor at Southern Oregon University.
Whoa.
I know. Like a lot of my friends did. I unfortunately didn't take enough classes. I was focusing a lot more on the painting.
Mm-hmm. What do you like about being a scenic artist versus the scenic designer? Have you done much designing?
I have not done much designing, no. I took the classes, I took, the full year, 3 quarters of set design, and for me, I just really like getting in there and picking up a brush and doing the artwork, which isn't to say that design doesn't have an artwork element, but I feel like the planning of it is something that doesn't really click with my brain chemistry.
Hmm.
There was just something, like I certainly understand the basics from the class and I do feel like I got a lot out of it, but just for me, I think it's just because I enjoy the painting more and working on that large scale.
Sure. I love to hear stories of people who make a living like as visual artists. Because sometimes I wonder, like people who major in like sculpture or painting, like how they find work.
Right. Yeah.
um, like, what are some other avenues maybe that you've considered for painting or other ways that like artists like you make money outside of theater?
Yeah, well, when I was a little kid, I was taking art classes all throughout my childhood. So I was thinking like I'm just gonna be a painter and I'm gonna sell my paintings, or I'm gonna do illustrations or something, was kind of like my first idea.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then I kind of started getting a little bit older. Around the age of, yeah, like 11 or 12, I wanted to be an Imagineer for Disney. I thought
Cool.
that would be really cool.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then I just kind of, I kept thinking about it. I kept drawing and painting. In 8th grade, I had a great English teacher that made me want to be an English teacher. So I started thinking about that in high school. But then that's when I started taking drama classes as well, and then got into the stagecraft, and then learned the painting and found out that could be a career. And just, I fell in love. And I decided that's what it had to be
Mm-hmm.
for me.
What I love about being in the arts is that we get to be like advocates for yes, it's possible.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, it doesn't exactly pay all of my bills at the moment,
Mhm.
but certainly it feeds my soul, is what I like to say.
Mhm. Like we need that. We all need that. We all need something that
Yeah,
feeds our soul.
yeah.
And if you get paid to do it, like even better.
Yes.
Are there any resources that you use, whether books or blogs or your a favorite YouTube channel that you use to grow?
I am sometimes, if I know I'm gonna be using a technique that I've never learned before or I've never done before, I do pull out my scenic art for the theater textbook. I totally do. Um, it helps me, like, especially when I have to mix a goop of some kind, like a stucco or kind of something like that. It just, it kind of shows you how that can be more manageable and kind of help with techniques on that. I also like the Scenic Artist Guild. I follow them on Facebook. Um, and the Scenic Art Studios also. I follow them on Facebook and I see all of their videos and I read all of the things that they share. And that's really cool. And it's cool. I love when they post pictures when they're painting backdrops. That's just the coolest thing. I love watching how they set it up because it's the same way that I learned how. It's like, oh my gosh, yes, I learned, the right way,
Yeah.
how to set all of it up and how to do it. And it goes back to the watching and listening thing. That's what inspires me to continue to learn, is just to watch what other people do.
Hmm. What's one thing that you've learned since like graduating from school and becoming professional?
In school, they say it's going to be tough in the real world, and it is. But it's very important to be able to identify when someone is being harsh in a constructive way and when someone is just being critical and a
Hmm.
bully. And it's really difficult to identify when you're just coming out of school. I learned I shouldn't be afraid to reach out to every resource I have to ask opinions when something might not feel exactly right. And unfortunately, that is a lesson that I had to learn through a job that I had. um, but like, I am glad that I reached out to the resources even when I thought that I couldn't. I'm really glad that there were people who helped me out and got me to where I am now. Just to be, I guess overall, just to take care of yourself physically, emotionally, just make sure that everything around you is healthy. I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I was just talking to someone, and they were saying that they're taking a step back from theater for a little bit. They still have theater dreams, but they just need to take a step back for a few months and get like a full time job. And
Yeah,
um,
I did that. Yeah.
yeah, and just the importance of like it's not a race. We're not racing
Yeah.
to get somewhere. And like if we
Yeah.
get there and we're mentally jaded, is it going to be worth it once we get there, wherever there is? And so, yeah, I think that's an
Right.
important lesson to learn.
Totally. Like, I'm going to be 25 next month, and I don't want to be sick of my passion.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
too soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really important. I'm really glad that I do have resources to be healthy and to know that I'm around people who are as invested in my success as I am and as I am
Mm-hmm.
in their success as well.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. What are other things that you do? Do you have any other practices or routines in your life that you do regularly to help you keep healthy?
I try and get a good night's sleep. That's real important.
Mm-hmm.
It's just to sleep well and eat well and drink water is really important. Because my body's the machine that allows me to do all of the wonderful things that I can do in theater. I just try and keep that maintained. I don't do much special.
Uh-huh. That's fine. What's one show that you are just dying to be the scenic artist on?
Oh gosh. Oh, that's a really good question. This probably a lot of people would give this answer, but I would love to paint Les Miserables. I would. I would
Uh-huh.
love to paint a huge show drop with the little Cosette holding a book or a flag or whatever they want her to be holding, and for it to say Les Miserables and for it to be like really gorgeous. I love to do backdrops and lettering and stuff. And then also, I would get to do all of the distressing and the grunging and stuff that I also like to do.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah. What's your favorite show that you've worked on?
Oh my goodness, I've worked on so many. And then I have different favorite things about each one. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Um, in my senior year of college, we did a show called The Rise of Arturo Ui. That was based about the rise of Hitler in Germany, and we got to actually put our set into the Black Swan Theater, which is the rehearsal space for the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. So it was really cool, and it was one of the first shows that I was the lead of my own crew. So it's just really exciting to paint the show on campus, and then we did a whole like load out and load in this really beautiful little theater. And I just had a really great crew. Everyone was really positive and supportive of each other, and I feel like everyone learned a lot. I taught people how to wood grain for that show, which was really fun. I learned truly how difficult it is to teach a technique, and to be able to explain all of the steps and stuff. Yeah, I would put that definitely toward the top of my favorite shows. Also, I had the best time of my life doing an internship in Santa Rosa at the Summer Repertory Theater Festival. Every show that we did that summer was my favorite show, just for the people who were there and the experience that we all had. pulling 6-day weeks, 12 to 16 hours a day, doing that kind of thing. That was a blast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some of my favorite theater memories too are when the schedule is just insane, and you're like, well, here we go, we're all in this together, you
Yeah, yeah.
know.
I was drinking like 2 coffees and 3 yerba mates a day. It was nuts. It was too much.
But you survived, and now it's on your top list. So
Yes,
favorites.
definitely. Yeah.
Do you ever come across conflict in your when you're scenic painting, and if so, how do you deal with that?
Well, sure. Since art is so subjective, artists can be sensitive.
Hmm.
Um, by which I mean me, truth be told, I consider myself to be a very sensitive person. It's always important to remember that the art does come first, and being so collaborative, it is important to respect the people that you're working with. It's important to find mediation if that's possible, just so that it's not always a one-on-one type of disagreement. Yeah, that's kind of a tricky one. I guess some conflict too can be if a designer is a little bit too hands-on.
Hmm.
Um, I've had a couple of those, mostly in school though, just because that's we're all kind of learning how to do things in school. And then
Hmm.
that is kind of true of life too. In a conflict, I do like to see what I could still learn from that person, even if, we're disagreeing for whatever reason on whatever level. Yeah, it's important to just try and turn everything into a learning experience and move forward.
A great attitude to have. I wish everyone that I came across it in life had that attitude.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Honestly, being in Portland makes it really easy. I have had no conflict so far in Portland. Um, it's probably oh, well, I not to say that everyone I work with uses cannabis, but, like, I think the use of cannabis in the Portland culture helps it to be more relaxed.
Hmm. I could see that.
Yeah.
Anything we haven't talked about that is like burning on your mind that you would like to talk about?
Really, I can't state enough how important it is to make sure that you're just being treated right in your job. It's
Mm.
so easy to want to keep your job, to want to keep the listing on your resume. It's hard to say I quit this job because they weren't being nice to me because, you might think that a future employer would think that you're flaky or that you can't handle pressure or something, but, truly, people will want to hear your story, and they will want to give you another chance. It's true.
Yeah, I've had some rough experiences with theaters too, of not being treated well, and that's really hard. That's a hard situation to know when to walk away.
Yeah, and unfortunately for me, I reached a breaking point
Hmm.
and, left in a way that I didn't really want to. I'm so thankful that I do have this second chance here, especially in a part of the country where I'm from, that I'm familiar with, that I know that there are people who I just kind of jive with better
Hmm.
socially. But there was just a lot that was really uncomfortable for me, like being so far away from family and stuff, that made things that maybe I could have coped with better. It made it just that much more difficult for me, which is a challenge that shouldn't scare people away from taking such a risk, because I truly believe that it can turn out to be a great opportunity and a great experience for sure. That's just what kind of happened for me.
Hmm. Yeah, and in the end, like a lot of situations in our lives are uncomfortable, and we wish they wouldn't have happened, but we can look back and be grateful for the lessons that we learned and
Definitely.
how we grew
Yeah.
from them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my last question, I never planned for this to always be my last question, but another podcast I really like, this is always their last question, and so I think I've kind of stolen that idea from them. The host of that show, he always asks people advice to young people. Well, he asked it like advice to your younger self, but I like to do like advice to young people who are maybe in college or in high school and are similar to you. They enjoy art and enjoy painting. What advice would you give to them?
Take care of yourself physically, mentally. Watch, listen to not just your leaders, supervisors, and bosses. Listen to your coworkers, your classmates, younger classmates than you know, people that you might be mentoring. Listen to them. Just observe and practice and paint and draw and be yourself and have fun. And don't forget that it's art and that you love to do it.
The music for the Backstage Creative was improvised and performed by Ian Leroy, and the logo was designed by Zach Rimbold.